This is Stick. He lives in the United States and, like everyone else there, uses dollars every day. But when Stick goes to Germany, something strange happens. Your $1 becomes just 0.90 euro cents. And when is he going to Vietnam? That same dollar is worth 25,000 dong. Stick is confused. If it's the same dollar, and why does the value change so much? Prepare yourself, Stick. Today we will find out why $1 is not worth $1 and how it reveals the secrets of the global financial system. In this video, we'll dive into the world of currencies, exchange rates, and why money isn't just equal. Before we can understand the value of money today, we need to go back in time. Value of money today, we need to go back in time, called the gold standard. Under this system, each coin represented a fixed amount of gold. For example, the US dollar was once backed by gold. Governments could not simply print more money if they did not have enough gold. As economies grew and global trade intensified, it became increasingly difficult to maintain enough gold to back all the currency in circulation. Wars, crises, rapid growth, all of this forced countries to abandon the gold standard. In the 1970s, the world adopted something new, the fiat money system. Fiat money is a type of currency that has no intrinsic value. That is, it is not backed by gold, silver, or any physical asset. It's worth something simply because the government says it is, and because people believe it. This is why many call this system fake money, not because it is fake, but because it is based on trust. Since this money has no physical value, what defines its value? The answer: supply and demand. If more people want that currency, for example, the US dollar, it appreciates. Think of it this way. If a lot of people want dollars to do business or invest in the US, demand increases, and so does the value of the dollar. But if a country prints a lot of money without control, and no one trusts the currency anymore, the value plummets. This is exactly what happened in Venezuela, where money lost so much value that people used bags of bills to buy bread. So the next time you hear someone say, money is money, remember, it's not quite like that. The value of a currency depends on trust, stability, supply, and demand. And understanding these is the first step to understanding the global economy. If you want a video just about fiat money or hyperinflation, comment below. Section 1, Inflation. Inflation when money starts to melt, i.e. it starts to lose its purchasing power. Simply more money circulating than the quantity of products and services. When a country has very high inflation, the value of its money practically decreases. Why does no one want to buy and hold a currency that is melting its purchasing power? For example, in 2022, you could buy 2 apples for $10, but due to high inflation 3 years later in 2025, you could only buy 1 apple for $10. So you buy less stuff with the same amount of money. A real-life example is Zimbabwe. In the 1980s, the Zimbabwean dollar was worth more than the US dollar. One Zimbabwean dollar was worth 1.35 US dollars. But due to failed land reform, economic problems, corruption, international sanctions, and thoughtless money printing, the value of the Zimbabwean dollar fell dramatically. In the 2000s, 1 US dollar was worth almost 600,000 Zimbabwean dollars. The government tried to fix the situation by changing the currency several times, but eventually gave up and started using more stable foreign currencies such as the US dollar and the South African rand. Although the latest news is that Zimbabwe is trying to get its original currency back, so +1 point for never giving up on Zimbabwe. Interest rates. The interest rate is the cost of borrowing money. If you borrow $1,000 at a rate of 10%, you will have to pay $1,000 plus $100 in interest. In countries, the central bank sets interest rates. In the US, for example, the Federal Reserve does this. They decide whether rates will rise or fall depending on the state of the economy. Now imagine that you want to invest in government bonds. Here's how it works. You lend money to the government, and the government pays you interest over time. Let's say you buy a $1,000 bond that pays 5% interest for 10 years. You'll receive $50 per year for 10 years. Yes, the higher the interest rate, the higher the return on your investment. Now think, if the US is offering 5%, but Germany is only offering 1%, where would you invest? Probably in the US, right? But to do that, you need to buy dollars. And here's the magic. More investors buying dollars, years more demand, years stronger dollar. But the opposite is also true. If interest rates fall, investments there become less attractive. And the investors, they leave. They look for better returns in other countries. Result, less demand for dollars, or a weaker dollar. It seems easy. Just raise interest rates and attract investors, right? Wrong. High interest rates also mean that getting into debt becomes more expensive. Companies stop investing. People give up on buying a house or a car. The economy slows down. If it goes too far, it can cause recession and unemployment. That's why the central bank needs to balance things out, raising or lowering interest rates carefully, according to what the country needs. And that's why every time this guy here, the Fed chairman, is going to speak, the whole world holds its breath in foreign investment. When a country opens its doors to the global market, as China did in the late 1970s, something interesting happens. Companies around the world are beginning to see opportunities: cheaper factories, abundant labor, and access to new markets. But to do this, they need to spend in the local currency, buy land, pay salaries, build infrastructure. The greater the demand for this currency, the stronger it becomes. And the stronger the currency, the more wealth the country attracts. But investors don't just put their money in just any place, because no one wants to invest where the rules change all the time. If a government promises low taxes but then changes its mind, confidence disappears. And if protests, strikes, and political crises become routine, forget it. Business grinds to a halt, and the risk only increases. In addition to politics, the health of the economy also weighs heavily. Uncontrolled inflation, high debt, and constant crises make investors back off. After all, no one wants to see their investment melt away overnight because of a currency that is losing value quickly. On the other hand, a stable country attracts more capital, keeps its currency valued, and becomes a growth hub. In the end, investing in foreign investment is not just a matter of offering advantages. Section 4. Export and import. When Japan exports cars to other countries, those countries need to buy Japanese yen to pay for the imports. This increases demand for the yen. But when Japan buys coal from Australia, then it has to exchange the yen for Australian dollars. Japan needs to exchange yen for Australian dollars to pay for coal, which increases demand for that currency. Japan needs to exchange yen for Australian dollars to pay for coal, which increases demand for that currency. Exporting more means that other countries need your currency to pay, and that's why many governments focus on exports to make the currency stronger. An example of this is when the US gets oil-producing countries like Saudi Arabia to sell oil exclusively in dollars. This increases global demand for the US currency. As almost all countries need oil, they need to get US dollars to buy it. This made US dollars a global currency. This mechanism strengthens the American economy and its global influence and became known as the petrodollar system. There are rumors that Saudi Arabia would be open to accepting other currencies in oil trade, but so far this has not materialized. If you want, I can even make another video about it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, the small island nations, Pacific countries like Tuvalu have low import needs, which makes their local currencies more stable and suitable for domestic use. These currencies do not have wide possibilities, so stronger currencies such as the US dollar are preferred, or even the Australian dollar to facilitate trade. Chapter 5. Defined value. Do you want a strong and stable currency in your country? Then it is essential to maintain solid economic policies and avoid mistakes that could devalue it. Just use this trick. A common trick to stabilize a currency is to peg it to stronger, more stable currencies, such as the dollar or the euro. Did you know that Brunei, a small oil-rich sultanate in Southeast Asia, keeps its currency pegged to the Singapore dollar at a 1.1 ratio? In other words, both currencies have the same value. And that's exactly what makes... In Brunei, you can use the Singapore dollar as if it were your own currency, and the best part is that it works both ways. Another example, Belize, a small country that did something similar. Belize, which borders Mexico, has a fixed exchange rate policy. The Belize dollar is pegged to the US dollar at a rate determined by the government. Bottom line, one Belize dollar is always worth half a US dollar. So if you want to exchange it, there are no surprises. The value is fixed. When exchanging US dollars for Belize dollars, there is no need to check the exchange rate. Simply double the amount as the rate is fixed. Easy, right? When a country indexes its currency, it becomes stable and easier to control. The problem? The country loses flexibility and becomes dependent on the policy of the other currency. And therein lies the risk. The country is at the mercy of the stronger economy. If the US dollar falls, the Belize dollar will depreciate along with it, even if the local economy is doing well. The two are tied together. If one coin breathes, the other breathes. If one stops, the other suffocates along with it. See? That's why the coins aren't worth the same. But now what would be your next question? Why don't all countries use the same currency, like a world dollar? So we don't have to exchange money every time we travel. Exchanging money, dealing with exchange rates, all that headache. A global currency sounds perfect, right? But the reality is much more complicated. Exchanging money, dealing with exchange rates, all that headache. A global currency sounds perfect, right? But the reality is much more complicated. After all, they can cross borders without exchanging a penny. Convenient? Very. But behind this, there are huge challenges. The challenge? Each nation loses the power to control its own currency. The European Central Bank now rules. In practice, this means that the country can no longer change interest rates or print money just because it is experiencing internal difficulties. This is because decisions made by one country can also impact others. One example was the Greek financial crisis. In 2009, the Greek crisis spread to other countries in the Eurozone, and that's why Germany was not at all happy. The Greek crisis has already shaken a union of just a few countries. Now imagine the challenges if the whole world decided to use the same currency. It would be a huge risk. Imagine being calm with the economy doing well and suddenly facing inflation and a crisis, all because of problems in another country. Imagine your economy doing well until a country on the other side of the planet makes a bad choice and you foot the bill. Their problem becomes yours. All of this shows how a mistake in one corner of the world can affect the rest. And perhaps you're now asking yourself, is a global currency worth it? Making our currency as strong as possible? The answer is, it depends. As you have seen, what defines the value of a currency varies greatly from country to country. Countries have different needs. For example, a country that relies heavily on imports, such as Singapore, may benefit from having a strong currency. Wanting a strong currency can be good for making imports cheaper. But for a country that exports a lot, like China, a weaker currency can be more advantageous. It may prefer a weaker currency so that its goods are cheaper abroad. This is why China often keeps its currency artificially undervalued. Does this work? Well, that's a whole other discussion, and I'll explain it in another video. If you want me to talk more about it, just comment below.